Hey everyone, this is Archangeli. So I had a request to document the before and after process of treating the stains from the body that I intentionally stained earlier this evening. So if there's a request for it, I don't mind doing it. So I'll be using the Volks Dream Rescue cream. This was $21 and I bought it when I was at the Los Angeles doll party back in September. This product does have an expiry date. So this batch was manufactured in March of earlier this year. So Volks says that after about a year it loses its potency, and people have said that after you've opened it, you should try to use it right away because the longer it sits, the less effective it becomes. So just to recap, this is the body that I stained. It's pretty recognizable since it is a Dynamite 3 body and I have sanded the nipples, so I'm not going to be swapping a different body to try to fool you guys. This is the body that I'm going to treat, so make a note of this rather dark line on the shoulder here, how purple the elbows are. There's some faint staining. Here's a mark on her butt there. Just some faint lines on her, or marks on her thighs. But because I did use my own good socks, there's nothing wrong with her feet or the lower part of her legs. It's predominantly just the upper body that we'll need to work on. So before we get started, let me just show you the materials that you're going to need. So obviously you need the jar of the Dream Rescue cream. You're going to need a toothpick. This is for stirring, and a few cotton swabs or Q-tips. You'll also need plastic cling film. Any kind will do. This is from the dollar store. I've also got this industrial strength resinite stuff, which is what I prefer to use just because it's got the cutter on it. And obviously your stained body. So here we go. When you open this stuff, I've already used this once. I opened it last week, as I mentioned earlier in my other video. If this has been sitting for a while, or you've never used it before, it might have separated a little bit. So make sure that you give it a really good stir, just to make sure that all of the active ingredients are blended nice and thoroughly before you use this. And it's got a bit of a gritty texture to it. I don't know if you can, how well that shows up on the camera, but it is kind of gritty. So be careful, or just be aware when you're applying this. Don't rub it too hard into the onto the doll, because you could end up abrading the surface of the doll, and that is something that Volks mentions in their English directions, which I had to look up on the Volks USA website. Now just to make my own life a little easier, I'm going to take some of these pieces off. Only because it'll make it easier to wrap it in the cling film afterwards. Let's take the bust off as well. We can leave the torso frame in there, it's not really important. And I'll leave the legs attached only because it is a pain in the butt to put them back on afterwards. And away we go. So I've gotten a very thorough but thin coating all over this piece. You don't want to glob it on too thick. If you notice that it's kind of pooling or it looks a bit too heavy, thin it out a little bit. You're better off doing several applications, thin applications, than one big heavy go at once. Okay, there, I'm just evening that out. There we go. And then grab some cling film and wrap this up. point of the cling film is just to prevent the water in the Dream Rescue cream from evaporating too quickly, and that way it'll allow the active ingredient to sit on the vinyl longer. And sorry guys, come on, here we go. Sorry, I was trying to avoid getting it on my hands. You could wear gloves if you wish. I choose not to. And this box is pretty old, so it likes to. Okay, so there, that piece is pretty well wrapped. So now that you've seen the process, I'm going to repeat this for everything else and leave it to sit. So I finished up with that DD3 body, or the Dynamite 3 body, and I'm going to leave this to sit for a day or two, and then we'll come back and check on it. In the meantime, I'm going to finish up applying the Dream Rescue on the other body pieces that I need to stain treat as well. And next time I see you, we'll be unwrapping this and see how one treatment worked on the stains that I did tonight. So just a quick update, we're about 36 hours in with the Dream Rescue application. You can still see a really dark purple spot there, but generally the arms are a lot lighter than they were before. I'll probably unwrap these tonight, give them a rinse, see how they look, and if I need to, well, I'm going to need to, I'll reapply as needed. So that last update was in natural daylight, and you could see that the purple stains on the arms, which were the worst parts of the body that had been stained, the purple stains had dissipated quite a bit. We're back in the bathroom. I'm going to unwrap the pieces and see how we've progressed in terms of stain removal. I'm going to rinse off the residue. Luckily, the Dream Rescue cream is water soluble, so actually I can tell that the arms need a bit of work. So let's actually do a different piece, since I'm curious about the other pieces that I haven't really checked on too much. Okay. I'm realizing now I probably should have taken the torso frame off. Would have made it easier to rinse. Okay, let's focus. So you can still see some of the blue stains on the bust piece here, and a bit of the blue on the back. Let's see how the rest of the body fared. Oops. Mind you, the body didn't have nearly as much staining as the bust and the arms did. Oops. All right, there we go. Excuse me. So just on a cursory examination, the marks on the abdomen have faded a lot, and there's still a little bit on the bum here, but the marks that were on the legs seem to have disappeared, which is great. So I will have to treat that again for sure. Whoops. Let's have a look at these arm bits. Wow, I wrap these up so tightly that it's pretty hard to undo them. All right, I'm going to speed this up for you guys. All right, let's have a look. So obviously there's still some purple staining on the arms. Oh, hello, my cat. Hello, say hello to Spooky. Hey, Spooky. Anyway, so there's still definitely some purple on the arms and on the bust. So I'm going to treat this again, leave it for a couple of days. Hey, kitten. And I'll give you guys an update, all right? So I'm just working on reapplying the Volks Dream Rescue cream to the parts of this body that still need a little extra treatment, a little TLC, which, to be perfectly honest, is still pretty much most of the body. I've already done the legs and the bum, and I'm just going to coat the bust. Would it have been faster for me to use Oxy or acne cream with a 10% benzoyl peroxide? Yes or no? I mean, because there's so much staining right now, an entire body, it's hard to get the entire thing under a heat lamp, because when I spot treat using acne cream, it's usually one smaller area, and I can focus the heat lamp on that one spot. Because this is such a large surface area that needs to be treated, that's not really, I guess it's not really practical, because I'd be constantly rotating and reapplying. So I guess in my opinion, if you have a large area like this that you need to stain treat, something like this Dream Rescue cream is ideal, because you can just apply it and leave it for a couple of days. The Volks instructions say to leave it for 1 or 2 days, no more than that. They actually say don't leave it for 3 days. I'm not actually sure what would happen after 3 days, but you know, follow the instructions. The Volks instructions don't say anything about keeping this near a heat source. It could be just because they don't want any kind of liability in case you accidentally overheat your vinyl. Once upon a time when I was stain treating, my heat lamp got a little bit too close to the vinyl. It was a foot, actually, and it got a little bit too close to the heel, and it actually left a scorch mark. So I guess Volks doesn't want that kind of liability in case you damage your vinyl from keeping it near a heat source, which is why they don't suggest it. I haven't tried putting this near a heat source, so I don't know if that would have an effect. If anyone wants to play around with anything that they've stained and let me know how that works out, I would appreciate it. Another thought that I had was I could have actually, let's leave that there for a second, I could have simultaneously treated the arm pieces, since they're all stained pretty much to the same degree of blue. I could have treated one arm piece using a heat lamp and Oxy, just to see how effective it was in comparison to the Dream Rescue cream, but I didn't think of it at the time. And to be perfectly honest, the tube of Oxy that I have has been sitting around for a good 8 months, so it's probably not the freshest. I'd have to get myself a new tube before I did that. Okay, so that's nicely wrapped. Let's just wrap it up one more layer. Okay, so I'm going to do the arms and leave this to sit for another couple of days, and I'll get back to you and we'll see how things go. Now, one thing I do want to mention when you're applying the Dream Rescue cream is to be careful not to get it on the plastic armature. With Oxy and with the, what is that, the Twin Pines, the Removes It stuff that I refuse to ever use again. If you get it on the armature, it will cause it to yellow. So I am being careful not to get the stuff on the armature. And with that parting note, I'm just going to continue working on this, and I'll wrap it up and I'll get back to you in a couple of days, okay? We're about 32 to 34 hours into the second application of the Dream Rescue right now, and just looking through the plastic, I'm seeing a much bigger difference compared to the first application. So I'm going to unwrap these tonight, and I'm really excited to see how these have turned out. We're now 48 hours into the second application of the Dream Rescue cream. I'm going to be removing the cello wrap and rinsing off the cream so that we can have a look at how the stain treatment has progressed. All right, so let's have a look at how things have turned out. The mark on the abdomen, you can still see it a little bit. I hope you can still see it a little bit. I would say it's about 90% reduced, and I'm pretty confident that if I were to apply the Dream Rescue one more time, that would just completely disappear. The legs look... Actually, the legs look great. The mark on the bum is gone. Her legs look perfect. So that's wonderful news. The bust... You can still see the blue marks. Everything has lightened and faded considerably, but you can still see some of the marks on the neck. There's still a spot there. Whoops, let's bring that down. Still a spot there. And you can still faintly see that mark that I put on her shoulder with my fingers. The arms, which took the brunt of most of the staining, have improved a lot. The upper arms, not as much. These will still need a few more treatments, maybe one or two more. The forearms, if you can remember, right here, originally there was a very dark purple spot, almost like someone took a marker and just poked at it, and that's lightened considerably. Obviously, you can still see the purple. This is probably going to need 3 or 4 more treatments before it all comes out completely, but this has improved a lot. So this gives you a general idea of the pace that the Dream Rescue cream works at. If you have a lot of things, like a lot of surface area that you need to treat, and you don't want to be monitoring it every hour to reapply and rinse and whatnot, this is a great product to use. It doesn't damage the vinyl because it's a fairly weak bleaching agent. So you can leave it for a couple of days, come back to it, retreat it as you need. And it hasn't damaged or changed the surface of the vinyl at all. Everything still feels the same. There's no blistering or anything of that nature, thank God. One thing that I should mention, I noticed, I mean, there's no scientific way to quantify this, but just from my personal observation, it seems like this second treatment of the Dream Rescue was more effective than the first. And I was trying to think of reasons why this could be. And there's 2 things. First of all, I had this sitting upstairs on my dining room table, and it was a nice sunny day yesterday, so the sun was streaming in and hitting all of this, which probably kept it a little warmer. So, and that could be one of the reasons this was more effective. The second thing is, even though you watched me apply this the first time on Saturday evening, and I told you guys mix it thoroughly and you make sure everything is mixed before you apply it, my jar had been sitting kind of askew in the drawer, so there was a lot of stuff gooped up under the top of the lid. So I was trying to be thrifty and use the stuff that was on the bottom of the lid, because this tiny jar is $21. I wanted to get as much use of it out of it as I could. So I used a lot of the stuff that was on the lid, primarily on the bust and the arms, for the first treatment. And so it probably wasn't as mixed as well as when I did it 2 nights ago, because everything had been in the jar, because there was nothing sitting under the lid the second time that I applied it. And I think that made a pretty big difference as well, because the second treatment would have been more thoroughly mixed. So in conclusion, if you do have stuff gooped under the lid, I guess try to get it into the jar, give it a good stir. Don't try to be too thrifty with this. Don't expect overnight miracles either. It's a great product, but as you can see, even with 2 applications, and this has been over the course of 4 days, it hasn't completely removed everything. I'm going to need at least 1 treatment here, probably another 2 treatments on the bust, and maybe 3 or 4 in the arms before I can get everything else out. And if you want, I can give you an update in a couple of weeks and let you know how this body's turned out. I'm going to keep stain treating it, because I don't really want to have a smurfed body laying around. Otherwise, if you're happy with how this has turned out, let me know in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.